beat me if you can. Survive if I let you.
Let's get nuts. Pull the fucking trigger! My kids, I'm hateful. I'm the tattoo clown.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for, and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
And here we are, Tuesday night. If you are watching this, you are on our YouTube. Make sure you tell all your friends, family, to go like, share, subscribe to the YouTube page so you can catch more of myself and my tag team partner, the Mr. Jack Torrance.
Well,
how we doing?
Oh, we're getting downtown like Julie Brown, buddy. Another exciting week here. And first off, I would like to say big shout out to our sponsor, Deadly Grounds Coffee. Pretty awesome. Our second show, and we have a sponsor. How about them apples?
Deadly Grounds, and also the Dorkening Podcast Network is
Right
a
on.
sponsor us, and much appreciated, and shout out to Leo and his crew, what they do for us and keeping our shit up on the streams.
Hell yeah. I can dig it, Danny.
Thank you. Tonight we are diving into the best rivalries that we feel are appropriate for the rivalries. Y'all may have some different opinions. You may not. But this is what we think of the top 10 in our glorious minds.
I still love that picture of me when I still had hair. I love the fact that you put that up as our...
Well, that was before you met the Weed Whacker.
It's a little different now, folks. But this is a tough one for me. I love the fact that we're doing this week, but aside from maybe Austin versus McMahon, it's very hard to choose 10 of the greatest feuds of all time because there's been so many. I mean, going back to well before we were even, a thought in our mother's bellies. So this was tough for me. I'm not going to lie. It was not easy coming up with this list. But once again, like you said, it's just personal opinion, folks. Don't get mad if we leave your favorite feud out or anything like that. It's just very hard to call this one. I'm not going to lie.
Well, if we leave your feud out, you want us to talk about your feud, shoot us an email. offtheropestuesday@gmail.com. We will try and get to your comments, suggestions, and feuds tonight.
Indeed. And we greatly appreciate your input, folks. Feel free to disagree, agree, like, don't like, as long as you're interested in some way, shape, or form. We're cool with that. So
we appreciate you.
Are we diving into a little Raw Dynamite recap first? Is that
yes, we're going to dive in quickly to the Raw report and the Dynamite report. We will start off right off the rip with the Raw report real quick, go through a couple of things there. Again, 3 hours long. Vince, you need to cut that shit down because I tapped out after 2. Not going to lie.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about last week, dude. First time I had watched an entire Raw in many moons, and it was just, there's so much filler, condense it. Just bring it down. I miss the old Attitude Era days of 2 hours was plenty. We don't need 3. When they first started doing this too, it reminded me at that point remember when Nitro went to 3 hours and everyone just knew.
It was like that first hour was for the kids before they went to bed, and then the last 2 were more scaled towards the adult regime, if you will.
Yeah, you had to be very careful too, because the highlights of the show, when it came to Nitro, no doubt about it, were the cruiserweights. I don't care what anybody says about NWO and yada yada. The cruiserweights were the shit. You had Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Juventud Guerrera. The list goes on, and that's why I always tune into Nitro. But it was very hard to, especially back then. You didn't have the DVR. You can't just. I don't care.
Well, those are the days where we were hooking up VCRs at each other's houses. Like, you record Nitro, I'll get Raw, Kevin will get ECW.
Right?
And then we'll watch them all.
I still have endless amounts of Nitros and Raw in my poor dad's basements. By the way, Dad, I doubt you're watching, but I swear I'll get that shit out of your cellar real soon. So we're going to kick it off with the old Raw report here. I did think it was cool right off the bat. I like the fact that Charlotte is a heel again. They started off with Charlotte, and then they set up this whole, Asuka was going to fight Charlotte and stuff, which is always fine with me. The two of them really can't do any wrong unless Vince is his way.
I mean, he is the chairman, so he will always get his way.
Yeah. And boy, are we all too familiar with that scenario. So then we also had I guess might as well just say now, the match itself was pretty good. Asuka and Charlotte, which is no big surprise because they're both extremely talented. And I thought it was cool. They snuck in, Asuka got the surprise or seal win, if you will. They're doing this whole setup with Rhea Ripley now being the women's champion for Raw, correct? Yeah, because once again,
too many belts. The Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah, too many belts. But yes,
many participation trophies.
Well, there's potential there for a three-way feud, I guess, if you will. Then we had Drew McIntyre.
Well, I also back to the Asuka Flair real quick.
Oh, sorry.
That Flair, Charlotte Flair, got fined $100,000 for tossing the ref and unsportsmanlike conduct, if you will.
Oh,
she got fined a big fine for beating up on the ref.
Now, is this a storyline fine, or is this like, wow, she really crossed a line and actually?
I don't know. It's on the interwebs, so whatever you read on the interwebs is true.
Because if you recall, back in the day of the Nexus, when they first showed up, that almost ruined Daniel Bryan's career, that whole invasion. If I'm not mistaken, I think he spit in Cena's face and he choked one of the ring announcer or something. He just got a little too intense for pretty much everyone's liking, I guess, except for me. I thought it was great. But then, Vince was all... Daniel.
Too far.
So this is probably just storyline. Jibba jabba.
Most likely.
Yeah.
But it makes for good content.
It would be awesome if it was real though, and she was just like, fuck this place. So we're just gonna make this quick little run through the shows. Drew McIntyre, as we know, did not win at WrestleMania, did not reclaim the WWE Championship from Bobby Lashley. And now, starting last week, they throw in this thing where I still don't know who these guys are. They look like background characters from Road Warrior to me. Mace and T-Bar. Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, they were the ones who jumped McIntyre.
They jumped them. They look like a New Age Demolition.
Yeah, just a real the Ocean State job lot of demolition, I guess.
The Sabres version.
I don't get it, but Drew McIntyre unmasked them. I guess that was a big thing.
Yep.
They're luchadors. Who cares if they get their mask taken off? So, but Drew McIntyre defeated Mace and T-Bar. Via disqualification, because God forbid, you just have a straight match. So oh gosh, what else we have? Oh yeah, and then I guess Braun Strowman got into the mix. I don't know if they're potentially looking at a Strowman and Drew feud, which could be interesting.
It'd be interesting. I mean, two big powerhouses battling it out, but then what are they fighting for? Are they fighting for a number one contender spot?
Right.
Bobby Lashley. Are they going to introduce Bobby Lashley into a triple threat match? A couple different angles they can play on that one. see how it goes. Hopefully they don't fuck it up like they normally do with things.
We're hoping for a non-botch, but we know how things work nowadays, so chances are. Then we also saw Viking Raiders defeated Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin via the pinfall.
I like them. I like the Viking Raiders.
They're cool. Yeah, I dig them. They remind me of the old school 80s tag teams, but the ones that could actually wrestle. You know,
Exactly.
Tugboat and Earthquake dancing their girth around.
And then we had Orton, and I couldn't remember the guy, the Riddler's name, so I just called him Skinny Bitch in my notes.
I always want to call him Matt Rydell. I don't.
But I gotta say that
problem of mine.
That match,
Matt Riddle, the
Matt Riddle
wonder that he is.
That one kind of entertained me because it kind of reminded me of the 1-2-3 Kid when he overed Razor Ramon.
Ah, you mean, hey, yo, Chico?
Yes. Thank God you're wearing a shirt.
Yeah, well, some people would disagree. Not many.
I thought it was great that he won by a backside pin.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see him go over on Orton. I kind of thought, we'll see a good contest, but this will be Orton just, getting a win. And the kid, like I said, he got the shit beat out of by Sheamus at WrestleMania. He reminds me in a way of like an annoying Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Like if Jay wasn't cool, that's how I look at Matt Riddle.
On a scooter?
Yeah, with no shoe. It's like put some fucking shoes on, dude. I don't know. You're not one of the wild Samoans. You don't get
You're not King Haku.
You're not Umaga, I don't know. A quick side note, I don't understand why anyone would want to wrestle without some sort of protective footwear. Talk about an easy way to just wreck your feet. Toes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess.
Right? I mean, how much it sucks just to stub your fucking toe when you walk by the fridge the wrong way first thing in the morning.
Let alone stubbing on a turnbuckle.
Imagine, Rusev or Miro, if you will, nowadays coming down and just crossing your foot. Yeah, so, hey, he's dangerous, I guess. But the kid can work. I actually got to admit, though, one thing with him real fast. In the wake of the whole Me Too movement and everything, I think it's awesome that everyone is coming up and speaking against people who have done whatever they've done, the horrible things that have happened. But, it happened through the wrestling industry as well this past year. And I do recall some allegations about Matt Riddle from back in the day that he did some not so nice stuff. So, I don't know.
Shame.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one of those things that the woman who made these accusations got paid off, or who knows. I mean, I know WWE is not going to risk their reputation on somebody that carries that kind of baggage, so I don't know the full story, but
speculation has it.
I hear things.
Oh,
yeah, but yeah, he stole the win over Orton. That to me sounds like they might be setting up an Orton and lame Jay from Jay and Silent Bob feud, I guess.
That's the way it's looking. I kind of wish it was more of the Orton and the Fiend coming back, but
I think that one kind of ran its course, and like we said last week, that it should have had a better finish, or they could have done something at Mania that would have continued it. But looked like, we're done here. Orton even said, "I'm moved on from Bray Wyatt. I won." Yada. So
I want the blonde skinny bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some other matches in Raw. The Raw roster. Elias beat Kofi Kingston. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler lost because the Pepto-Bismol twins came down.
I like the Pepto twins. That's good.
I don't fucking know their names. They're not worth me knowing their names.
I'm sorry, but
and then that does it for me for Raw.
Yeah, overall, you had the Alexa Bliss promo talking about her doll and stuff, which Lily the doll looks kind of cool. Damian Priest defeated The Miz. Don't care. Damian Priest, like I said last week, is pretty decent in the ring, but I just don't care about the storyline. I thought this was going to end at Mania. Evidently, it hasn't. And yeah, I love seeing Sheamus again up in, a top level, so to speak.
Yeah.
He's the new U.S. champ. Anytime Sheamus is on, he's always fun, and he just beat the crap out of Humberto Carrillo last night. And I enjoy a good squash from Sheamus. It's just fun to see him. It reminds me some ways of watching Lesnar just go out when he first came in and just own people. It's fun. So yeah, there's your Raw report, if you will.
And then we're gonna hop in real quick with you for the Dynamite report, real quick.
Roger that.
I know nothing about AEW. Shitty host that I am.
We're not all that great in the fact that we really haven't covered much NXT, or we haven't said anything about SmackDown. So, I mean, if you guys want to sit here and watch us ramble for 4 hours, we could do it, but yeah.
You'd get sick of us in the first 20 minutes.
Come on. We're trying to just get to the
good
potatoes here. So if you have any suggestions of shit you'd like us to talk about every week, that's always acceptable as well. We appreciate your input. But
you can send your input right there to the email address on your screen.
Roger that. How about that? So last week, Dynamite started out pretty hot with the AEW Tag Team Championship being defended by the Bucks of Youth versus the Death Triangle, which features Ray Phoenix and Pac, who a lot of people will probably remember, much like yourself, Diggz. You're not too into AEW, but he was Neville in WWE. And I was always a big fan of him. The little gentleman from Britain, or wherever he's from. So, yeah, they, when you see guys like the Young Bucks and Ray Phoenix and Pac going into the ring, you're going to get a quality show. Of course, the Bucks walked away with the belts. They are just recently turned heel as they have joined Kenneth Omega, the AEW World Champion, and his alliance with Don Callis, Mr. Cyrus the Virus from the old ECW days, Mr. Diamond in the front of his freaking forehead. That I hated him back then, hate him now. AEW also has, a whole thing going on right now where they're doing a crossover with Impact, formerly TNA. So I think that's pretty cool. They were also doing stuff with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I love the idea of different federations getting together, trading talent. It reminds me of back in the day. One of the only things that WCW, in my opinion, did right was when they used to do the talent trade, so to speak, with ECW. That's how you saw Cactus Jack leave WCW and go to ECW and stuff like that. So, but then we all know how that ended. Bischoff raided Paul Heyman's locker room, and the rest is history. But so that was cool. Yeah, like I said, Bucks defeated the Death Triangle, and always quality performance from those four. Then we saw Red Velvet versus Jade Cargill, who what was that, like a month ago or so? They did the mixed tag team match with Shaquille O'Neal and Cody Rhodes. And I got to ask you, dude, did you see any of the clips from that match?
I did not, no. Shaq
was awesome. Shaquille O'Neal, way better than I ever expected him to be in the ring, especially at his age. They finished it with him standing on the ring apron. Cody did a splash over the rope and put Shaq through 2 tables. Like, Shaq can bump, dude.
Shaq go check a clip to that.
So these women were part of that match. They were the women in the mixed tag team match, Red Velvet versus Jade Cargill. This match was not all that hot. I think the problem with this, I think they initially anticipated that Cody Rhodes' wife, Brandy, was going to actually feud against Jade, but then Brandy got pregnant, so obviously she's not in the ring right now. So this storyline is one of those, we didn't know what to do. So there was that. Then we had Anthony Ogogo versus Cole Carter. Anthony making his in-ring debut alongside QT Marshall, who recently turned on Cody Rhodes. This was just in and out. It was actually just a punch to the gut, and the referee called the match, and that was it. That was the whole thing.
Love it.
Yeah, quick and to the point. Then we had Chris Jericho versus Dax Harwood. Dax, of course, member of the infamous tag team. This was one of those teams that I was shocked when Vince cut them. And it was no big surprise when AEW scooped them right up because they are awesome. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, they were in WWE as, I should know this. Everyone's sitting there watching this right now going, I know what it is. But anyways, they were awesome, old school technical wrestling kind of guys. AEW scooped them right up. So Jericho actually had a match with Dax because Dax and Cash are now part of the Pinnacle, which is MJF's new stable, which he created by trying to destroy Jericho's stable, the Inner Circle. And this actually featured Mike Tyson as well. Always glad to see Iron Mike back in the ring, as I did live in person at WrestleMania 14, as you know. But dude, all right. So Tyson, he's in his 50s now?
Easily.
He looks awesome.
I'm sure he does.
He looks. I mean, he's totally still in fighting shape, no doubt about it. So hats off to Mike on that one. But this wasn't much of a match. Jericho defeated Harwood. This is more just building the whole feud between Inner Circle and MJF's Pinnacle, which I expect great things from that coming up at Blood and Guts. What's basically a free pay-per-view on Dynamite is coming up next week or the week after, something like that. So
we'll have to watch that and have a Blood and Guts report.
You want to check that one out, buddy. That one's going to be good. What else do we have? Chris the Alien Statlander returned as she took on Amber Nova. Pretty decent match. Nothing too awesome to write home about. It was more just the fact that Statlander has now returned. She was out of action for a while. She has also joined up with the best friends, being Orange Cassidy, Trent, and Chuck. So always cool there because I'm a huge, huge Orange Cassidy fan. Always good. So then that brings us to the main event. The Falls Count Anywhere match for the TNT Championship featuring champion Darby Allin going up against Matthew Hardy himself. And that was
Matt Hardy.
Pretty good match, buddy. I know, like you said, you didn't see it, but Darby Allin is another one of those guys for the new generation of wrestlers, if you will. He is awesome. He doesn't, at first glance, he doesn't look like your average wrestler. He's short, he's scrawny, he's a professional daredevil, he's a professional skateboarder, he does all kinds of sick stuff. But Darby is awesome. And I love that Matt is in AEW. I know he's up there in age in his career, but I still always love the delete Matt Hardy phase and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's definitely one of those guys that you can tell he works with the young guys backstage, trying to get them in the right path. So you got to give Matt a lot of credit with that. He's one of the Hardy boys. So what can you say?
I'm about to hop on that AEW train and start getting my knowledge so I can participate.
You're missing some good stuff, buddy. Moxley.
Now, how long is their Monday night event? Is it 3 hours like the good old WWE?
No, Dynamite is only 2 hours. Wednesday nights on TNT. They do have 2 shows now on YouTube, AEW Dark, and then there's the new one on Mondays that now Paul White, the Big Show himself, is now a host of. So I think it's cool because they have a really big roster, which is awesome because they're giving a lot of young talent some exposure. But they only have a 2-hour national television show, so you can't put everybody in the ring in 2 hours. So the YouTube shows, I think, are good because it gives the young men and
Get them
women
some play.
start.
It gets them out there in front of a crowd,
Exactly.
regardless of whether it's on the YouTube, on what network are they on? TNT?
TNT.
So whether on TNT or YouTube, it gets them all some sort of airtime to get established, to get known, and move up in their rankings, which is the way the WWE used to do it between SmackDown and Raw, and when Raw was Raw live and then Raw taped, way back when.
Oh,
back when we used to tape shows.
I have to reminisce for just a moment. The old Saturday morning WWF superstars.
Yes.
I kind of miss the days when you'd have Razor or whoever come out and just destroy some random mullet jobber.
Someone like us on the ring going to fight the Ultimate Warrior, and we last 3 seconds.
It was thanks to superstars that good old Barry Horowitz.
Yep.
Was made famous.
Danny Davis.
I kind of miss the jobber squash matches sometimes.
I was thinking that the other day too.
Yeah.
We can do another whole episode on jobbers.
Oh boy. But that'll wrap up
some of the you could even consider some of the superstars back then jobbers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh. I mean 90s, dude.
Bad News Brown.
Mantar alone. Mantar. His gimmick was so bad that it was good. Put it that way.
I get it. How
do you even explain Mantar to anyone who's not familiar with professional wrestling? I'd like to see it.
All right. I think it is time we break into the meat and potatoes of the show, as you so called it earlier in the broadcast.
Let's break it down, buddy.
Before we break it down, though, you wanted to touch real quick on the recent releases.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes, we got to have a little bit of the salad first.
It's true. So, a little appetizer, if you will. I just wanted to touch on the point that, as many wrestling fans will know, this past week, WWE made some cuts. And part of that list, Bo Dallas, who we haven't seen in a while. I wish I had the list in front of me. There was a woman that was just on Raw that Mick Foley was actually really praising on his Facebook page. I was reading about it the other day. I wish I could remember her name. That he was very surprised that they cut. But the biggest take from it is WWE, in their infinite wisdom, released Samoa Joe.
Yep.
I don't get it, man. I know he's been commentating for a while because of injury, but it's fucking Samoa Joe. Maybe that'll be my new wrestling name. But yeah, Samoa Joe, I'm sure anyone who's actually watching this show will know who the fuck Samoa Joe is. He had one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history, speaking of feuds, with CM Punk in the old Ring of Honor days. He had incredible feuds with AJ Styles and Kurt Angle in TNA. The guy is I love him just for the simple fact that he has said flat out, one day I'm probably just going to wind up in a wheelchair because I'm just going to kill my body for this sport, because yes, it's a sport.
It is a sport.
It is. But Joe is the man, and I didn't understand WWE just letting him walk away from them like that. I don't know if there's more to it than we know. Maybe his injuries are more long lasting, but even at that, he's such an invaluable source to the business itself. And he was really good on commentary too. So
he was. You never know. May see him over on the AEW side soon enough. That's where they all seem to be migrating.
Yeah, I hope he goes to AEW. I really do. Joe is awesome, and I've always been a fan. And I really always felt that they never used him properly in WWE even before he got hurt. He had some good matches only because he's awesome, but storyline wise, he was one of those, they just let him fall through the cracks, really.
Yeah. The one that I believe you were talking about with Foley, was it Mickie James?
Mickie James was one of them, but there was another woman that was actually just on Mania. I believe in the tag team tumor match, as we were talking about last week. I can't remember the girl's name right off the bat. Sorry, but yeah, Foley. I follow Foley on Facebook, and I'm happy to announce that as of today, I was recognized as one of Mick Foley's top fans on Facebook. So,
you can die happy now.
Barry Horowitz again. There you go. But Foley broke it down about the whole release list, and he agreed that he understands, like anybody, it's business. That's the way it goes. You got a big roster, you can only use so many people. But if you had a woman that was just on WrestleMania and then you're going to let her go a couple days later, I don't see that.
I don't get it.
But I'm not Mr. McMahon, so.
Well, speaking of Mr. McMahon, I guess that's a good segue into. I guess we'll kick it off with one of the greater rivalries.
I would have to say the greatest rivalry in the history of professional wrestling. Stone Cold.
I have to agree.
Not only just versus Vince, but the corporation itself.
Yeah, I think I think we all lived vicariously through Stone Cold by flipping off your boss, punching your boss, saying "fuck the corporations." Stone Cold got to get paid for it to do it, but they had some outstanding matches. That storyline was the greatest feud storyline, like you said, within the business. And I think within any federation, within any organization.
Yeah, I think it's undisputed. I don't think anyone can argue that. That feud completely revolutionized the entire professional wrestling industry. That was also the feud that kept the pulse of WWF as far as it was known back then, pre-WWE. That's what kept them alive.
Of course.
The fact that the Monday Night Wars, as we all know, at that time, WCW was kicking ass. And for the 90s, granted, you had Brett, you had Shawn Michaels, you had Taker, but that was a very dark time for WWF back in, 94, 93, 95, heading into that era. Vince was going through the whole indictment with the federal government for the steroid shit. So it was a real tough time for WWE. And hey, big time credit for the Hitman, Taker, Michaels, those guys that kept that company going at the time. But it was Austin and Vince that,
that kept it.
Yeah.
The Austin and Vince is what kept people coming to the Raws every Monday night, the SmackDowns every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, where the fuck day it was on that month, or whatever network it was on. But it was that anticipation of you watching, wondering, is Vince going to piss his pants to a fake gun that says Bang 316? Is Austin going to spray him down with a beer truck? Is Vince going to fire him? Is Austin going to go corporate and then tell Vince to fuck off?
Yeah.
It was that anticipation that kept everyone coming back, to your point, which is what kept that, what was then the Attitude Era. And I think Austin was the real start of that Attitude Era when he won the King of the Ring and he said, Austin 316 just whipped your ass. And I think, with Michael PSAs, they're kind of looking at Austin like, did you just say that live on TV? That kind of sparked where the Attitude Era took that turn.
Absolutely.
And with the Vince and Austin and the matches they had, like St. Valentine's Day Massacre and Vince in the Steel Cage, that is still one of the greatest matches in my eyes. Because for Vince being in his age and being in impeccable shape, let's not pass that on. Vince is fucking stout. Right. He took some pretty good bumps too at his age, and he did a lot himself to keep his company afloat, to keep bringing that anticipation back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the guy literally put his body on the line, bringing up the St. Valentine's Day Massacre match. Austin was the first one to say, after the, probably the best spot of the whole match, as great as the whole match was, when they were up at the top of the cage and Austin tosses him off and Vince had the infamous bounce off the announce table.
Oh.
And for Austin, I'm sure you've seen the interview. He goes on to say, I'm up at the top of the cage like, I think I just fucking killed my boss. for real.
Yeah.
Like, oh, dude, the way Vince just bounced off that table, I will never, ever forget that. I was watching that pay-per-view live with my cousin, the big oaf himself, John DeMattis. If you're out there watching, here's
I love Johnny.
over at my folks' house, and we were like, dude, I think Stone Cold just killed Vince McMahon. And oh man, how great that match was. You had, and that's how they introduced Paul White, obviously known at the time as Giant in WCW, coming in as the Big Show. And that the whole feud, man, that's what revolutionized the business, no doubt about it. It changed everything. And
well, I mean, look at we're still talking about it today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and we will
2021, and that was in 1993 to 98, 2000.
Well, no, Austin came in 95, 96.
95, 96. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you know, we're still talking about it. We're still talking about it from then to now as one of the greatest feuds ever to happen.
I'm telling you, dude, gun to my head, best feud of all time. It's Austin versus Vince. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing that ever compared to that. That's the feud that also catapulted Austin to that level where I know it's up for debate. Who was bigger, Hogan or Austin? That's the feud that put Austin up to that level. There's no doubt.
I mean, you want to go that who was bigger, Austin or Hogan? That's like asking who was better, LeBron or Jordan. Two totally different.
It's always up for debate. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going, because I mean, as you know, and everyone that's listening, watching, wherever, you know, you had your 80s, you had your good guys and your bad guys. When it was Austin's time, it was a brawl for all. And
well, I also mean, yeah, and I also mean too, as far as what two individuals can you think of that had a bigger impact on the entire industry itself? I mean,
well, yeah,
like Hogan and Austin. There's no doubt about it. You know? Yeah. Hogan owned the 80s and Austin owned the 90s. It's like the San Francisco 49ers of the 80s and the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s. That's just basically how it worked out. And like I said, it's always up for debate. That's another topic for another show. But Austin became the biggest friggin' thing in the world at that time.
Oh, absolutely.
That was why you tuned into Raw every week. That's what broke the cycle of Nitro always winning the ratings. It was, holy shit, what is Austin gonna do to McMahon next?
Yeah. And then let me go buy his T-shirt. Let me go buy the T-shirt that Vince is wearing and the merchandising on that.
It's Austin 316 shirt, still the highest selling merch, I think, in WWE history, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in keeping with the Austin theme, we're going to switch gears here because we're only at so much time tonight to
yeah, we could go on that feud for a whole show. We gotta move on, but still so
the Austin McMahon was one of my picks, and we're going to keep on the Austin theme with one of yours here. It's Austin and the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Absolutely. This is why this was a very tough topic for me to sit here and try and pick 10 of the greatest. Honestly, I mean, I could do this whole countdown just based on Mick Foley and Ric Flair matches alone. Flair versus Funk, Flair versus Dusty Rhodes, Mick Foley versus Triple H, Mick Foley versus The Rock. I mean, the list goes on and on. So we're trying to branch out there a little bit, and yes, I know we were just talking about Austin and McMahon, but this is the feud that made Stone Cold blew up worldwide thanks to the Austin McMahon feud. This was the feud that made him Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes, I agree 100%. This is where it put his test to wrestling and be able to hang with the veterans and to get that pushover. This was that feud.
Yeah, and he was the perfect pairing for Bret. Bret, like we were saying earlier, Bret helped carry that company through the early part of the mid-90s and everything and into the latter part. But Bret, it was like, I don't know. He never had an opponent in WWE like Austin. And I love the fact that Bret helped make Austin become what he became to be when at that time when Brett was coming up, Hogan and Flair were not doing those kind of favors for Austin. They were more concerned about their own personal shit. And Brett knew that Austin was the wave of the future. There's no doubt about it. Brett knew that shit was coming down one way or another. He was either going to retire, he was going to leave. But this guy, he recognized it because he's a freaking hitman. So there was that. But I mean, I love the build-up. Brett had been out for a while. They had that awesome match at Survivor Series, and then the way that every week, that was another one of the reasons why you tuned into Raw. You wanted to see what Austin was going to do to Brett this week. And it was the first time we ever saw Brett turn into a heel. That's what also helped catapult Brett into the heel side.
Right.
Which was great. WrestleMania 13. I don't know. That's one of those gun to the head things, dude. It's like right up there for me with Macho Man versus Ricky the Dragon. Austin versus Brett.
Yeah.
Just, you can't say enough good things about that match.
Nope. Which was the pay-per-view? And I'm drawing a blank here because, I'm old and senility. Where Austin passed out in the sharpshooter.
WrestleMania 13.
That was 13. That's what I thought.
And Shamrock, special enforcer. Austin, as we all
did not tap. He passed out.
Famous story. He passed out. And that's what's so iconic about that match. That match started with Brett being the face and Austin being the heel. And they were so good together that they made that transition right there during that match. Mm-hmm. By the time it was over, Brett was the heel and Austin was the face. And I just got to say real quick, because it's one of my favorite stories ever. I read Brett Hitman's fucking autobiography, one of the best wrestling books I've ever read. He went in to talk about the whole story of that match, and he said that he knew, because Brett was so good about putting, high-end drama matches in his head, he could just piece them together like Legos. He knew that they needed some juice in that match. So he went to Austin before the match, and it was all secret because Vince didn't want any juice. And he said to Austin, I think it will make the match so much better if you get some juice. And Austin had never bladed before, so he was very nervous about this. And Brett had said, you should never let anybody blade you, but I know what I'm doing. I'll do it for you. And they kept it under wraps the whole time. Vince actually bought it. When Austin gets busted open, they sold it like he just smacked into the guardrail and busted his head open. Vince didn't know. And they didn't get fined or anything, because that's like back in WrestleMania 8 when Piper and Hitman, that was when Brett gets juiced, that was all secret. But then Flair and Macho Man did it in the main event, and Flair is so blatantly, obviously like, that Vince freaked out. Was like, I fined both of you $500. So Brett knew how to do it. So Austin was like, okay. And he was right, because if you go back, the match itself was awesome, but if you looked at that match without Stone Cold just pumping out the blood and passing out at the end like he did, it wouldn't have had the same impact.
No, and that's still one of the more iconic pictures, if you will, of Austin in the sharpshooter, agonizing pain, but just gushing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of them. Like I said, that's one of the more vicious pictures I've seen, next to Mick Foley.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember the old shirt, the Blood from a Stone t-shirt. Yep. I still want to get that. My boy, may he rest in power, Rusty Young. He had that shirt when we were in high school, and I was always so fucking jealous. Here's to you, buddy.
So keeping with Brett, we're gonna keep on the Brett train, the Hitman train here. We're gonna do a little sweet chin music, as you know, my all-time favorite.
Dun, 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 dun. Ha, ha.
Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. As you know, Shawn Michaels is my all-time. Like I can sit, like you can talk about Foley, I can talk about Michaels for hours and his matches.
I know you're a sexy boy, Dave.
Hey, I'm married. This is a kids-friendly show here.
Just because you're married doesn't mean you can't be a sexy boy.
This is fair.
You know?
I can't.
The old line is, "Hey, hands off the merchandise."
But what if I want to buy the merchandise?
No, I meant, you're married. Chicks can't touch you. It's yeah.
unless they have money and they're old.
Hey, you got to talk to your wife about that. If she wants to pimp you out, that's her business.
Anyway,
Hi, Jed.
man,
How are you?
Shawn Michaels, Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, really, that could be a whole show in itself. WrestleMania 12, Iron Man match.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll just start right there. I mean, the amount of training that these two had to go through, 60 minutes in a ring, and at the end of it, to go to overtime for Michaels to fucking come out with the belt.
Sudden death, dude. It was awesome. Oh, man, that was another one of those that I will never forget watching that live.
Watching Bret grab the belt and walking down the aisle thinking the match was over. And I believe it was Monsoon who came into the ring and told Earl Hebner, the match is not over. There has to be a winner.
You are correct, my friend. Indeed was the WWF president at the time, Gorilla Monsoon, came down and gave the order for sudden death, and we all know how that turned out. That is Iron Man match. As far as how incredibly athletic both of those guys were, it's unmatched by really anything, in my opinion.
I agree.
A lot of guys back in the day, Bret talks about this once again in his book, that it wasn't an uncommon thing for guys to do 60-minute, house shows and stuff. Harley Race, Terry Funk, the old school dudes, Ric Flair. That was not an uncommon thing. Bret came up in that era of doing that. Him and Dynamite Kid were doing that up in Stampede, Calgary style.
Yes, they were.
So Bret headed into that match knowing that he knew how to orchestrate that match. And there's no doubt about it. Bret, in my opinion, I think Bret was calling the spots for the most part. We also know that at the end of that match, a very controversial moment did take place as Michaels sitting there. The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels. He looks over at Hebner and Bret's sitting there. Like, Bret had just tried to shake his hand and be like, hey, good match. Well, Michaels wasn't having it. And Michaels looks at Hebner and goes, tell him to get out of my fucking ring. And Bret was like, dude, really?
If you get a chance, go listen to Grilling with JR. He's got a segment in there with Conrad from 97 to 98 about Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
And what a dick he is.
Yeah.
Before he found God and got his life back together. How much of an asshole he was to people in the ring, but he could do no wrong by Vince because he was Vince's boy. Shawn Michaels getting paid $750,000 a year, can't do wrong, not showing up to things. Things like that with Bret. Tell him to get the fuck out of my ring. Go to the Montreal screw job, which we can spend weeks on because it's still
forget about 1 4-hour show. Yeah. No, the screw job. Everybody knows about the screw job. We don't have to get too much into that. The greatest thing about this feud, and this is why this is, once again, if we were going to say what's the greatest, what's the second greatest, I would put this probably number 2 because it was just as interesting to find out what they were going to do in the ring as it was to find out what was happening behind the scenes.
Right. Because this is the feud that went on for years. And I mean years. I think it was not too long ago they just finally made up in the ring. Shaking hands.
A few years back, yeah.
Even when Shawn Michaels won the Slammy for the best WrestleMania match or the best match or whatever, he's like, I won that match. Just kind of a little bit more digging.
Yeah. Wow, he was good at what he did when it came to being a fucking prick. No offense to the sexy boy. Love Shawn Michaels, but he was a fucking asshole.
Well, I guess according, I was listening to that podcast by JR and, give them credit for this because JR has all the stories because he was there. But when they were going into that Montreal job, Bret was saying something about, I'll lay the belt down. I'll lay over for you here if you do this. And he's like, Shawn's like, I would never do that for you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like,
Sean, Brett went out of his way to basically say, "Hey, I know we've had our differences, but I'm happy to put you over and blah blah blah." And Michaels was
yes,
basically like, "Thanks, but I'm not
I ain't
going to
doing
say the
it.
same for you." And the crazy thing is that the original plan for that whole feud was actually going to be the main event for Mania from 12 through like maybe even 14. I think the original plan was okay. So they had the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12.
Mhm.
WrestleMania 13, the main event was supposed to be Brett versus Michaels. We all
Right.
know how that turned out. Brett was pissed, and everyone else was, including Taker and everybody, when Sean came out and said, "Oh, my knees hurt." Oh no!
Hey, your computer's hurt.
Technical difficulties, people. Oh wow, I'm trashing this place. Okie dokie. We're back.
Computer's got sweet chin music.
Hey.
Hey,
This is why I need a what do they call it in movies? Like a grip, or an assistant or something.
yes,
I'm not good with this shit.
yes.
But anywho, so we're back. Yeah, but yeah. I mean,
I definitely put this one up. Like you said, I'm gonna go with you on this one. Put it at number 2 for the feud.
yeah.
Just because of the longevity of it, and you always had that in the back of your mind, like when Michaels came out, when Brett came out, like what's gonna happen? Are they gonna make up? Is Brett gonna clock him like he fucking knocked out Vince McMahon in Montreal? Is Sean gonna kick his teeth out?
Yeah, and the thing is, they had matches well before WrestleMania 12. They had that great ladder match back when Brett was still the IC champ. And Brett always recognized the fact that Michaels wasn't an undeniable, incredible talent.
Mm-hmm.
And Brett always wanted to work with him, but Michaels was Michaels, and that's really what it was.
Well, I got to meet him. He was pretty cool when I met him. So,
Real quick before we wrap this up, I just want to say, I think a lot of people forget, if you go back and actually watch the infamous Survivor Series 97 Montreal Screwjob match, nobody really remembers the actual match because everyone is only focused on what happens at the end when Brett spits on Vince and, the fake sharpshooter thing and Hebner, ring the fucking bell. But the match itself before that was badass.
Oh, I know.
But no one remembers because everyone just remembers the finish. That was it. So,
and I'm sure you know reading Brett's book of what really led up to that match being one of Brett's last matches, Vince backing out of his contract with Brett.
That was it. I mean, the story goes, apparently, Vince has his say, Brett has his. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But Brett was under the impression that the match at Montreal was supposed to end in a double DQ because DX was going to come down and the Hart Foundation, Owen, Davey Boy, Jim the Anvil were going to come down. The ref was just going to call it. And then the next night on Raw, Brett was going to drop the belt. The other problem with this whole situation was, I found this out from Jim Cornette, that apparently Brett also had these big stipulations where, like, well, I can't drop the belt in Canada, so I have to be in America. And the thing is, which could have avoided the whole fucking situation, was when Undertaker went to McMahon and was like, okay, Brett and Sean can't see eye to eye, so just have Brett drop the belt to me or drop the belt to Austin or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Problems off. But we know how that all turned out.
Keep your fucking nose out of it, Taker.
Uh-huh.
Again, all of these that we're talking about, we can go on and on for hours on these topics. Again, these are just our picks, what we feel are the feuds. And this one right here coming up, I mean, they've had some of the greatest TLC matches.
Yeah, I know we concurred on our picks, but this was my pick.
This was a great pick. I mean, for those of you who don't know, if you don't know who these people are, well, shame on you. Go fall on a bed of thumbtacks.
Right?
Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys, and Edge and Christian. I mean, their ladder matches at WrestleManias for the tag titles, the triple threats, it's undeniably the best ladder matches.
WrestleMania 17, dude. A lot of fans feel, and I can't argue it, it was probably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You had this was when we really got to see Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys all show what they could do together. And I know leading up to this match, it was a great build-up too, because they were doing the rando nights on Raw where like Edge and Christian would have to fight the Dudleys in a chairs match, and then it was the Hardy Boys versus the Dudleys in a tables match, and then it was Edge and Christian versus the Hardys in a ladder match, and then they just smashed it all together for Mania, and it was so good. So good.
I think for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you will. I believe it was at WrestleMania 15 was their first one of their first battles for a ladder match for the titles, where Jeff Hardy went off like that 25-foot step ladder. Was that at WrestleMania 15?
15. I can't even remember. Wait, are you talking about like Edge and Christian versus?
The
Dudleys weren't there yet, so
no, it must have not have been.
No. But because of course Edge and Christian came in as fucking Gangrel's minions. The Brood. Yes. The Brood. And speaking of WrestleMania 15, oh dude, I think that was actually the introduction of the Brood, or if I'm not mistaken, remember it was the Hell in a Cell match, Big Boss Man versus Taker. And Big Boss Man gets supposedly hung.
You can see it like on the back of his jacket.
Because they had Edge and Christian like come down from the ceiling and jump on the fucking cage and set up Boss Man's noose or whatever the fuck it was. But yeah, that was fucking hilarious. Right up there with Al Snow and Big Boss Man. Speaking of the Boss Man, their infamous cage inside a cage match with the dogs, where the dogs all pooped and pissed all over the floor. There was a part where the dogs were humping and stuff. Sorry, we get easily sidetracked on this show.
That's for our OnlyFans account show.
We're gonna have to change the time. It's already 8:30. We cannot do all this in an hour. There's no way.
We just keep going. You know, it is what it is. There's no one behind me. I'm the boss.
Hey, no chance.
But yeah, the risks that the Hardy Boys would take, and then Edge and Christian and the Dudleys, all within any match they did. I mean, I remember when Edge, I think he speared Jeff Hardy off of hanging from the belt.
Oh yeah, what a great spot, right?
Like, oh my god, like spear, like he
Jeffrey
felt like,
hanging from the belt, and Edge comes off the yellow ladder.
Oh my god, Don killed him.
Yeah, they just all meshed so well together. I was already a huge fan of the Dudley Boys from being a ECW junkie before they had even gotten into WWF, and so I already knew what they were capable of. And then we saw, the Hardys had already paid their dues. I still remember when the initial, very first Monday Night Raw, the ECW invasion, if you will, when RVD fought an unknown Jeff Hardy at the time, and it was total squash, but that was him paying his dues. It was awesome. So I knew these kids had potential, and then I found out more about them. They were showcasing them and stuff, and they turned out to be one of the biggest tag teams of all time. And then you throw Edge and Christian on top of it. It just had, it was the best pot of gumbo you could ever hope for, because they all just mixed so well. And I can still remember watching that very first TLC at your old apartment, and all of us just being like, whoa.
Right.
They nailed it. They fucking killed it. They just, everything you wanted. It's still, once again, one of the greatest WrestleMania matches, hands down, of all time.
And not just WrestleMania. I mean, any matches they threw at a pay-per-view. I mean, when we were in Hartford with Foley's last match with Triple H, they were there.
Yep.
I believe they fought Edge and Christian that night as well.
Yeah, you had, it was great timing. It was just the way the world works sometimes. You had three Hall of Fame tag teams all at once, just kind of coming to their own. And that's not to take anything away from the Dudleys. They had already really proved their worth in ECW. There's no doubt about it. Dudley Boys were the greatest tag team in the history of ECW. I don't care what anybody says.
Without a doubt.
Dudleys for life. But they just the Hardy Boys had proved their worth, but they weren't up to that level yet. And then and Christian were still coming up, and they all just worked so well together. And especially for them to have the debut of that feud, which carried on for a while on Raw, SmackDown, other pay-per-views, of course. Right off the bat, they just killed it so good that it will forever stand the test of time. No doubt.
No doubt. So this next one is one of my picks. It's going to be a quick one. It wasn't really too big of a feud like the Austin McMahons or the Bretts and Austins like that. But to me, growing up, this was always a good one. The Flair and the Beach Stinger from the WCW days. It was just one of those where every Saturday morning or every major event at that time, like War Games, it was always Sting versus Flair, Sting's team versus Flair's team. And it was just a great entertainment value. Yeah, it wasn't really a feud per se, but to me, just the build-up and the makeup of what they could do together is what made it.
Well, I think they had I could call that a good feud. Yeah, they had a history there over their time. I love this. This was back in the day too, when WWF obviously was the bigger business, if you will, bigger company at the time, but NWA, WCW, whatever you want to call it at that time, they were putting on so much better quality wrestling matches than what WWF was doing. When we were all just sitting there watching Hulkster rip his shirt off, these guys were doing, big spots. You had Harley Race, you had Ric Flair, you had, some of
Dustin Rhodes, Arn Anderson, the Four Horsemen.
Yeah. And I love this feud because Sting was up and coming. I mean, he started out being in a tag team with fucking Ultimate Warrior.
Yep.
And Sting, obviously, they call him the Icon for a reason. He turned out to be one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And, excuse me, him and Flair just, they worked so well. They do. My biggest thing I love the most about this, because I will say, I know I've read a lot that, people will say this and that about Flair in his time, but he recognized, there's no doubt, he recognized the talent that Sting had, and he was willing to put Sting over. Mm-hmm. And they made some iconic matches, no doubt. Yeah.
I mean, their last call out on TNA, Sting was in the ring. He was calling Hogan the best wrestler ever. And then Flair came out and wanted one more match with Sting. And then, as opposed to getting Hogan in the ring, Flair wanted Sting. And if Sting won, or if Sting lost, and Sting was to officially retire and never step foot in the ring again.
Yeah, but even at that, like I said, going way back, talk about two guys that totally benefited from each other. Back in the early days, Sting gained huge exposure by having a feud with someone like Ric Flair. And Flair, from what I understand, was at a point in his career when he first started working with Sting that, Flair had worked with everybody. So he was kind of looking at it like, who can I make a good run with? And boy, was Sting ever
that was a great run.
Piece he was looking for in that puzzle. That's for damn sure.
Speaking of the Nate.
Oh, and by the way, woo on both ends, Stinger and Flair.
Yes. Well, Stinger was more woo, and Flair was more of the
woo. Stinger had the woo. I'm the Stinger, and I'll sting you. And then, well, we all know about Flair, but yes.
But this Flair feud, Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah, this was one of those, why I bring it up again, why this is such a hard subject for me to break down the topic of tonight's show, because you could easily say that this was the greatest feud in wrestling history. I wouldn't argue anybody saying that.
No, I wouldn't either.
No. Flair and Steamboat were just the coup de grace of everything you would want from a professional wrestling match.
The creme de la creme.
The creme de la creme.
Ha-ha.
Thank you. That was the term I was searching for. So thanks,
cheers.
I mean, they were just so fucking good that if you go back and watch really any of their matches, you know how everybody knows, during any typical professional wrestling match, even the best guys in the world, you'll see them every once in a while trying to cover their mouth, but you're going to see them trying to call fronts to the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Flair and Steamboat, you don't see that in their matches. They didn't have to speak. They didn't have to verbally communicate because it was like they could read each other's minds.
They were in sync with what they were doing.
It's like, for lack of a better term, it was poetry in motion. It was like a ballet watching those two do what they could do.
And I concur.
And this goes back to my point from earlier, as we were just talking about Sting and Flair. This was the definition of why actual wrestling was so much better back then on the WCW NWA side than it was in WWF. No doubt about it.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, the talent, the match quality, they were doing it for the sport, not for the overall dollar figure or whatever the other motivation lied with the WWE side. The WWF, the WCW side, and the NWA side was just pure raw fucking talent.
Yeah, the old Jim Crockett days and stuff. They focus more on actual wrestling, whereas you had the WWF, which it made sense because it was very profitable for Vince. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s, it was all about the gimmicks. It was all about the, didn't matter that the match wasn't all that great. I mean, I'm sorry. A lot of people want to say Andre versus Hulk is the greatest match of all time, and I understand because it is one of the most iconic moments, the slam. But if you
it's the moment, it's not the match.
Great of a match. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Andre could barely move back then, so.
I mean, you put that match up against Steamboat and Macho Man.
Yeah. No.
Macho Man and Steamboat tear that match apart.
Of course. Yeah.
Or Steamboat and Flair. Like, to your point, it wasn't all about, yes, the WCW and the NWA, they had their little bit of a gimmick. But they didn't have the full-fledged, it was gimmick first and then match.
Right, exactly. They focused way more on the actual matches versus the gimmick, where WWE was all about the gimmick. But hey, it worked. Vince made a shit ton of money off it, so can't say he was wrong for doing it. And next to that, we all got to see King Kong Bundy squash Little Beaver at WrestleMania 3. So makes sense. Probably my favorite WrestleMania moment of all time, aside from I'll even say I was there. I know I rub it in. I was at WrestleMania 14. I saw Austin with a belt, but I think my favorite WrestleMania moment was King Kong Bundy versus Little Beaver. I know, Kevin Ewing, if you're out there watching, you will concur. Well, Little Beaver.
But I will put Flair and Steamboat up with Michaels and Brett in one of the greatest feuds.
Yeah, you just had such incredible matches between them. Always leaving you on the edge of your seat, just never knowing what's going to come next, who's going to win. And like I said, they float so well together. It was almost like they had some sort of telepathy. I swear.
So as we make our way, we each have two more picks that we've chosen.
I'm glad you're saving one of mine in particular. I think
I'm saving that one for the last. I'm saying, the last two, you'll see, of course. Speaking of gimmicks and matches, this next feud that I picked, I think hurt every kid in the 80s, 90s at some point. Because when you saw these two get together as the Mega Powers, you were like, holy shit, Mega Forces. It's Hulkster, it's Macho Man, two good guys. And then it fell apart.
Yeah.
Brother. Like, you see,
yeah, dude.
It started at WrestleMania 4 with the tournament for the undisputed WWF Heavyweight Championship with Hulkster helping Macho Man with a chair shot to the back of DiBiase.
Remember, Hulkster and Andre got disqualified for chair shots, even though no one gets hit with a chair.
Right.
Andre and Hulkster just like, let's hit chairs. Oh, we're disqualified.
But then that's what really started that friendship if you will, between Macho Man and Hogan, and then the jealousy of Macho Man with Elizabeth and Hogan. And I think it was on a Saturday night's main event. Elizabeth got knocked out because Savage got thrown into her outside the ring. Hogan brought her back to stage, and then Macho Man jumped Hogan.
In the ER, yes.
Yes.
They had the
ER with the crash
showdown in the hospital room there. Macho Man convinced that Hulkster and Miss Elizabeth were running a little scandalous behind his back, but yeah.
I mean, as a kid growing up, I mean, I'm sure you were in the same boat. Hulkster was the guy, was your guy.
Of course, if you came from our era, Hogan was the man. If you were a kid in the 80s, that's how you got into wrestling. I mean, it's undeniable.
And then when you saw these two unbeatable forces come together, as a kid, you're excited. And then you see them disintegrate, especially as a kid in the 80s, you're like, what's going on?
Oh, when the Mega Powers exploded, I was like,
WrestleMania 5?
This can't be.
Right.
It reminded me of like all the, you know what, I gotta say, all those years later, what was it, when they did the Boiler Room Brawl match, Mankind versus The Undertaker, when Paul Bearer turned on The Undertaker, I had never felt that kind of like heartache in my life since the Mega Powers exploded. That's how just haunting it was for me. But you had the, you know, at that time, yeah, Macho Man, Hogan, no doubt about it. Two biggest guys going.
I mean, Hulkster kicked out of a flying elbow drop at WrestleMania 15 at Trump Plaza.
Right? I love the whole breakdown of the Mega Powers exploding. How could you not, you know, as we were seeing the whole big thing in the ER when Hogan and Miss Elizabeth are there, and Hogan's trying to console her, and Macho Man comes in. He's like, let me tell you something, Hogan. Yeah, I'm making some moves. I'm a girl here. And I remember, like, being a kid watching that, be like,
exactly.
No, they can't be doing this. No, because it's Macho and Hulkster. They're supposed to be the Mega Powers. And, you know, I honestly got to say, I don't think either one of their legacies would have been as great as they are today if it hadn't been for that. Like,
I think I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Really?
Here's our first disagreement.
You think Hulkster could have been as big as he was without Macho?
Yes. I don't think Macho could have been as big without Hogan in that.
Ooh.
Because we just mentioned it. Hogan has that iconic slam at WrestleMania 3.
Right.
He slams Andre again at WrestleMania 4.
Yeah, but they get disqualified.
I know.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for Hogan, Macho Man wouldn't have won the belt at 4.
Yeah, but that's just the way the storyline went. I mean, in terms of their overall popularity,
I still think Hogan would have been as popular as he is today without Macho Man, not the other way around.
So you think if Macho Man was out of the picture completely back then, he was never even in WWF, do you think that Hogan actually would have been as over as he was without Macho Man's presence?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
I don't know, man. I'm a bit more down with the Macho Madness myself, and I gotta say that
I'd rip my shirt off, but no one wants to see these impeccable pecs.
Nah, it's not cold enough for these nips to cut diamonds anymore. That's the best I can do with this chest. So nobody wants to see that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna disagree. I really think that they added to each other's legacy. I think without one, the other one wouldn't have been as good. And I mean that on both sides, because there's no doubt about it that Macho Man was obviously the better fucking wrestler between the two of them.
Well, yeah, he was more agile. He could do more things.
Body slam, nothing else. Macho Man, I mean, I'm sorry, WrestleMania 3, Macho Man versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. If you're out there and you want to learn how to be a professional wrestler, watch that match. You will never get anything better than Ricky the Dragon versus Macho Man as far as two people who can show what the fuck they can do in the ring.
Yep. But, I'm gonna disagree with you. I think Hogan would have been the icon still. Macho Man, not so much. If you want to put your input in, go to authorupstuesday@gmail.com.
I always love Macho Man better than Hulkster, so fuck him.
Yeah, fuck you. Anyway, if you want to send us your opinions of what you think of Hulkster and Macho Man, who would be the bigger man without the other man? authorupstuesday@gmail.com. Send us that email. Let us know. We'll reveal your secrets next week. We are not done, though. We are not done. We have another 4 hours of show to go. So,
anybody got any Adderall? I could use it if you.
Yeah. We got 2 more on yours. I'm debating which one to throw up here.
You know which one I want you to bring up last already. I already told you that was my number one.
Yeah, I thought so. So
the other day when you were like, "Hey, yes, here we go."
Funker and Cactus Jack.
Yep, that was my pick.
Me personally, I did not know about Funker until he came into WWF when him and Foley were feuding with the New Age Outlaws. That's when I learned about Funker.
Kind of criminal, in my opinion. He was an NWA heavyweight champion, dude. The Funk Brothers, dude.
I know about him now.
Terry. One of the most influential wrestlers in wrestling history. No doubt about it. I was always a Funker fan, man, coming up. I actually had I'll call him my Uncle Mike. He was actually my godfather. He had a black box black box back.
Spit it out, Junior.
Today, Junior. He had a black box. I always got to go over to Uncle Mike's house and watch pay-per-views and this and that. He was the one that tuned me into when I was a kid to the shit that you weren't seeing on TV. The Harley races and Ric Flair's and shit at that time, because Ric Flair, we didn't get TBS. We didn't see NWA, WCW here on good old crap COD. So I grew up being a hardcore Terry Funk fan. Once again, gun to my head, greatest wrestler of all time. It's the Funker. I love that man. What Foley and him did in their time, this is why I made this one of my top picks. The deathmatch tournament.
Yeah.
In Japan. That is the match that really helped Foley big time get, more exposure than what he had because WCW did not properly showcase his talents. He had some great matches as Cactus Jack in WCW, no doubt about it, but they gave him a horrible push. Bischoff didn't know what the hell to do with him. Nobody saw anything in him. That match helped him get into ECW, and then obviously ECW helped Foley get into WWF. There's no doubt about it, but Funk versus Flair, I picked this one as well because not only have I always loved their matches, you had Raven and Cactus versus Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk in ECW, one of the greatest matches ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care what anybody says, fucking rules. And the fact that they tore themselves apart all across the world, Japan, America. Remember the Monday Night Raw match with Foley, the only match where he went as Mick Foley, at least back then, versus the Funker to determine who would be the number one contender for Austin's WWF championship. And they put on one of the best matches ever that one night on Raw. I got to see Terry and Cactus win the tag team titles at WrestleMania 14, the dumpster match. But their time in ECW, their time all over the world, and the fact that they are the best of friends.
That's even better.
Cactus.
You can kick the shit out of each other. I mean, you can look you can look on our intro, and there's a clip there real quick of Terry branding Cactus Jack from Japan.
Branding Iron, ECW Arena.
ECW, yeah.
Best spots ever, right?
I mean, but to me, seeing them and what they could do as a tag team when they came into the WWF and started to feud in the dumpster matches and all that. Yes, they're great friends. Yes, they kick the shit out of each other. Mm-hmm. And those Japan matches are just untouchable. Well,
how about when Mick accidentally lit Terry on fire at the ECW Arena with the old steel chair wrapped around with a kerosene-soaked T-shirt? That was a whole big thing. Foley and Funk and Paul Heyman all had to go to court over that one. But Yeah, I just loved because here's the thing. Once again, like we were talking about before, okay, I could have made this whole countdown out of just Flair and Foley matches, really, to be honest with you, and just save some space for Brett and HBK and Austin and
Yep.
Vince. But uh, Terry versus Ric Flair, one of the greatest feuds ever. You know, they had what Mick Foley calls the greatest match of all time, the old I Quit match in the old pre WCW days. I just love them so much. I go back and watch the death match, the finals of the death match tournament. That just always holds a special place in my heart. I love those guys to death. So yeah, Funk Foley, you couldn't go wrong with any.
No, you can't go wrong with that.
Nope. Nope.
Hardcore icons, hardcore legends, best of friends. It's kind of like us in high school. Beat the shit out of each other and go have a beer afterwards.
Good old Tremopoline days.
You know it. Real quick, I know we talked about the backstage ER era or the ER setup with Austin, with Hogan and Savage. One thing we did not bring up is the bedpan shot Austin gave McMahon.
Yeah.
That today makes me laugh nonstop.
Oh, no doubt. One of
You
the
have Foley in there with the balloons and Mr. Socko, and then Austin coming in playing a doctor and ding with the bedpan.
Yeah, I don't know if you happen to check out Sunday night. A&E had the first part of the 8-part series, the WWE biographies. They started off with the Austin one.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, so good. Check it out.
I will.
Yeah,
we got
one
two
of the
more to
greatest moments in Raw history. Foley with the whistle. Ooh, and Vince, damn it, leave. And then the bedpan.
classic.
Basically got a mild concussion because it was an actual bedpan. Probably, all right, best moment on Raw ever. That's what I'm going to say.
We got two more left for you. One of mine, one of Sir Jack Torrance over there. I left this one for last because, again, we can go on and on about these two and the matches that they've had with each other and their feud. But it's the game. Triple H. Ah, I'm going to get you, Rock. Yeah. And the jabroni SmackDown. Laying the smacketh down on your candy ass if you smell what Diggz is cooking.
I just got to say real quick, because we just brought up Triple H. People our age will know. I know my boy Hunter Lewis will know this. The hog slop match. Sorry, I had to bring up old school Triple H. When that one person decks him in the head with a soda bottle and he keeps falling in the pig shit. That's how Triple H got his start, folks.
Oh, man. Hunter Hearst Helmsley from Greenwich, Connecticut.
Terrorizing, if you will.
God.
Yeah. This was kind of a tough one for me. I'm not going to lie, because I kind of think we should have grouped this one with a triple threat, if you will. I thought this feud was just as good as Foley versus Triple H and Foley versus The Rock. So it's a tough one. Yeah.
Also could have did it DX versus The Nation as a whole.
Well, you think about that time when Austin got his neck fucked up, when he was gone, it was Triple H, The Rock, and Foley that were, picking up the slack there for the company. And like I say, all three of those feuds, Triple H versus Foley, Rock versus Foley, and Rock versus Triple H, they're all like on the same level for me. So this was a hard one for me. Not gonna lie. I mean, they had that infamous SummerSlam '98 match, Madison Square Garden, the ladder match for the IC belt.
Where Triple H did the baseball slide and Rock didn't get his hands up in time and conked him right in the forehead.
Right? And I mean, hell, the whole deal with me and The Rock back in that day. Wasn't a fan. I don't care what everyone says.
None of us were.
I fucking hated The Rock. Great heel, but he took shitty bumps and he took the worst pedigree ever. I don't care.
We were the only three in the stands that would get up and chant for Rocky Sox. And
old man stewing himself, Kevin.
When Kevin and I were to Raw, we did that. We got stuff thrown at us. He got called a hippie. We got soda cans thrown at us. It was great.
I still remember the night that we went to No Way Out there in Hartford, and me and Kevin were looking for a place to fucking burn a bowl, and we wound up in some like crack alley. We were dedicated here. What can I say?
I mean, Triple H, one of the greatest WWF superstars ever to grace the squared circle, and The Rock too. I mean, going back and watching how The Rock can handle himself in the ring, but also cut his promos and improvise on the fly on the mic, and the combativeness with Triple H back and forth. It's something you don't see now.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, they had chemistry.
Yeah, thank you. That's the word I want. Chemistry.
Even though I wasn't a Rock fan, I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't work in that whole era, because he did. He was a big factor of that whole thing, obviously. He was a great heel because I fucking hated him. So bad. I was an Austin and Foley guy. But yeah, his feud with Triple H, no doubt. I put it up there. Like I said, I was just a little divided, because you could put that right up there with Foley and Triple H, Foley and The Rock, and Rock and Triple H. They're all in the same category as far as I'm concerned. But once again, hats off to them, because those were the guys that helped carry that company when they went from, holy shit, we have Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the greatest thing that wrestling's ever seen since Hulkster, as far as business goes, to Austin, his neck is fucked. Who's going to carry the ball while he's out? That was Triple H
and The Rock. And then when Triple H destroyed his squad.
And Foley.
Yes. Foley's not part of this conversation.
Oh, Foley's a part of every conversation. Mr. Foley, if you're watching, bang, bang. I love you.
But when Triple H tore his quad in that match on Raw, The Rock is the one who helped carry while Triple H was recovering. And then Jericho, yes. Mm-hmm. We didn't like Jericho back in the day either. Let's
did
call
not,
it.
But now I love that man. Yeah.
But I mean, have you ever heard a bigger pop from when someone came back than when Triple H came back from the quad?
Oh, at Madison Square Garden? No, there was never a bigger.
Still gives me chills. I'll watch that tonight, and I'll get goosebumps. Like,
yeah,
the amount of work that man put in to battle that what should have been a career-ending injury.
Yeah.
And that pop when he came back in is probably the biggest and loudest ovation I've ever heard.
Oh, dude, just remember like that moment when, we didn't know at the time watching it live that he had torn his quad, but if you watch that scene again, when Jericho puts him in the walls on the table, and now after the fact, that his quad was completely shredded.
Yeah.
Dude, the pain, I can't even imagine what he was dealing with there.
But I don't
Jericho, I read all Jericho's books as well. Jericho books I highly recommend. But he was like, I was really nervous about putting him in that holds. And I guess Triple H was like, no, we're on TV, just go. And he laid in the walls, dude, and
that's why he's the game, yeah. The 3 Hurst knee rule before the pedigree, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The little things you guys don't pick up on now of what happens.
We're weird like that, though.
Yeah, but watch an old Triple H match. It's true. It's damn true.
Little shit.
If he goes for the pedigree before he hits his 3 knees, it gets reversed. But after the 3rd knee, he goes for the pedigree. Right. Game, set, match, champion.
If you watch enough of this shit like we did back then, you picked up on the routine. There's no doubt about it.
And the botches that we'll get into later.
Oh, that's next week. I can't wait for the botch.
Right, we'll tease that in a minute, because we got one last feud to go through, and you've been waiting. I can see you licking your chops. You've been waiting for this one since we talked about this last week. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Raven and Tommy Dreamer. ECW, the greatest feud in ECW history.
Yeah.
Take it away, sir.
All I can say about this feud.
Food. I like food.
Well, I'm kind of hungry, yes. But as far as feuds go, yum, yum, yum. You totally nailed it, what you just said. The greatest feud, hands down, in ECW history. Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. Oh. just everything I ever wanted as a wrestling fan. A simple backstory that led up to this feud. Tommy and Raven went to the same summer camp. Apparently, Beulah McGillicuddy was a little fat chick back then that wasn't getting many eyes from the boys as well. And Tommy was the pretty boy athlete. Raven was the outcast. And God, how I love this feud. So
100%.
good.
What a great feud.
Yeah, what's that?
I got no words. I got no words for how great this feud was.
I just love the simplicity of it.
Exactly.
So
Now,
simple.
to your point of Miss Beulah McGillicuddy, fast forward many years later.
Well, I mean, she was a big part of the whole overall feud as well. My other favorite thing about this feud, aside from how well it was put together, was the fact that Dreamer never beat Raven until Raven was about to jump ship from ECW to WCW WrestlePalooza. And I love the way that they just made every fucking time Dreamer would come that close to beating Raven, and then somehow Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie, the original Dudley brothers, not the Dudley boys, but the old Dudley brothers, that was part of it as well. And then, I mean, dude, you had the part where, what was it? He weighed 95. No, I'm sorry. ECW House Party 1996, one of the most infamous moments in the entire history of Extreme Championship Wrestling, as Raven's girlfriend at the time, Miss Beulah McGillicuddy, still my favorite woman in the history of professional wrestling. I love me some Beulah. I don't care. Love me some Beulah. But anyways,
that's for another show.
What's that?
So that's for another show.
Yeah, we'll see. But Beulah in that segment reveals to Raven, who she's supposed to be his boyfriend at the time, that she was pregnant. And Raven freaks out thinking it was Stevie Richards' kid. And then she's like, no, it's Tommy's. And then Tommy came out, and one of the coolest nights ever, that was when the dude in the crowd had the Tommy, you use my sign.
Yes.
Fucking sign. And Tommy did, in fact, hit Raven with it, and it turned out there was an actual real stop sign locked in there. I mean, dude, they had the infamous chair shot heard around the world when Raven was handcuffed up to the cell, and Tommy finally got a little bit of revenge on Raven.
He got a good run on that shot, too.
Those guys, I love that. I know, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to sit here and try and say it was on the level of, like, you know, Austin versus McMahon by any means, but Raven versus Dreamer just had it all. I love the fact that it ran for as long as it did, with Tommy constantly somehow getting screwed over and never getting the win. And then that day came when he finally got that pin on Raven, and it was just like, it reminded me of the Patriots back in the 80s. We watched them suck for so long, and then into the 90s, and then
here we are.
Like, yeah, we won the Super Bowl. Yeah.
But I mean, going back to what we said earlier, like the WWF had their gimmicks, then talent. WCW had their talent with little gimmicks. But the ECW guys did it for the business.
Exactly.
They did it for the ECW and Paul Heyman to succeed. They had guys, you know, Tommy Dreamer letting himself get destroyed night after night and lose to Raven at every pay-per-view. Guys doing their own merch. Taz selling his own merch out of the trunk of his car. These guys did it for the business. They didn't do it for the paychecks. They did it because they love to be in the ring. They love to fight. And the Dreamer-Raven era feud proves that without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, this is also the feud that, to me, really showcased the fact that Paul Heyman is the mad genius of professional wrestling. There's no doubt about it. Once again, I just love the simplicity of the storyline. These were two guys that supposedly hate each other at a young age, never got along, and then they're fighting over a girl, and they just kept going, and so many great, just bloody matches. And like I said, the fact that they went that long with Dreamer always losing, and they always found a way for Raven to somehow screw him over. We're talking like 2 or 3 years, I think it was.
Easily.
Just kept beating Dreamer. And then, to make it even cooler, Raven goes to WCW, makes his money, figures out WCW sucks. The very, very first premiere episode of ECW's old Friday show on TNN, we all know how that turned out. It was the Dudley Boys were leaving for the WWE, and they were the ECW Tag Team Champions, and the storyline was, the Dudley's going to take the ECW Tag Team belts to WWE. And so Raven comes back that night to join Tommy Dreamer because Tommy started the match by himself getting destroyed. And then Raven shows up, helps Tommy win, and turns around, and they're the Tag Team Champs. Oh, man, I love that night. That was so good.
Well,
so good.
To your point of just the simplicity of that feud, it kept you tuning in every pay-per-view because they didn't have their weekly show yet at this point. It was their pay-per-views.
They did have, in certain markets, but this is back in the day, so you could only watch it in
it wasn't in our market yet. It was
New
still
York City, some market in Boston, I think, had it, but yeah,
Philly.
you couldn't see it on the West Coast. You couldn't down south. But it was also that was the feud that made ECW. I mean, taking that away from, they had a lot of other great feuds. You had Sabu versus Taz. You had
Van Dam and Jerry Lynn. I mean,
Raven versus Dreamer is what put ECW out there.
I put Raven versus Dreamer not in the same category of business-wise, I guess, as Austin and Vince.
No, you can't, because nothing compares to that.
Well, I say that with Dreamer and Raven carrying ECW with that feud.
Yeah,
pushing ECW there. As
and
Vince and Austin,
more exposure.
As Vince and Austin pushed WWF to that era.
Yeah, you're right.
And the Dreamer Raven feud is what kept you coming back to see if Dreamer was going to win.
Yep.
So that's what really gave ECW that. All right, we're here to fucking compete, and we're here to do it. And these are our guys. These are our two guys right here that you're going to tune in to watch. Like you said, you had your Taz, your Bam Bam Bigelows, your Jerry Lynn's, your Sabu's, your Tajiris.
Well, and you got to mention Sandman, though, because Sandman and Raven's feud was right up there, too. But Tommy and Raven was that was the top. Yeah.
Tommy was the face of ECW.
Yeah.
100%. So that's where my 2 cents lies with that.
But it's funny because right before, you know what else? If it wasn't for that feud, Scotty Flamingo, as we all knew him before in WWF and WCW, probably never would have had the career that he had because it was because of what they were setting up for his feud with Dreamer. That's where they came up with the whole Raven gimmick.
Yep.
So,
well, there you have it, folks. I put that as the greatest feud in ECW history. I don't know about wrestling history, but ECW history, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely the biggest feud in ECW history, and in my opinion, one of the greatest feuds of all time. Loved it. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who give a fuck less about what we're talking about, but we sure do appreciate the fact that you might have maybe tuned in. Who knows?
I know we've been here for a while. We've been here for an hour and 40 minutes talking your ear off about feuds. We definitely want to hear from you. We want to hear what you guys think your feuds are. Again, there's our email address, offtheropestuesday@gmail.com. That's going to do it for us tonight. But before we go, we next week, same time, same bat station, botches. Wrestling botches.
We're going to be breaking down the greatest botches in wrestling history. So we encourage you guys, if you're watching, please email us. Tell us what are the botches you guys want us to talk about. I already know right off the bat, Shockmaster's up there. We're also going to delve into one of my personal favorites, Lex Luger versus a T-shirt. That's coming up next week, folks.
We will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. And As always, go like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see this show exclusively at youtube.com/hellentertainment666. We will be here every Tuesday. You can catch me every other Sunday with my other co-host, Ashley, on Sinner Sundays, talking music and all that good stuff. And also, a thank you again to the Dorkening Podcast and all they do for us. I'm fucking tired. I'm fat.
And not
hungry.
forget Deadly Grounds Coffee.
Deadly Grounds Coffee as well, as they are partnering with the Dorkening Podcast as well. So
Yum, yum, yum.
shout out to all of them. We will see you folks next week. And on that note, peace out and be good to each other.
Hasta la pasta.